The exploration ship Aurora Dawn glided through the dark space like a silver arrow. Its engines hummed softly as it entered the orbit of a strange blue-green planet named Alindra. The crew had been traveling for 6 long months, searching for signs of life beyond the borders of known space. The planet below looked peaceful, almost too quiet. When the first landing team touched the surface, the air shimmered faintly like glass. The ground was covered with crystals that caught the sunlight and broke it into colors. The team expected dust and rocks, but what they found was breathtaking. Towers made of shining stone, pathways carved with delicate patterns, and gentle light pulsing from the walls, as if the city itself was alive. Among the crew was Ethan Vale, a young linguist and communication expert. He was not a soldier or a scientist, but a man who loved understanding others. He believed that every voice, every sound, carried meaning. His work on alien symbols and sound frequencies had earned him a place on this mission. The first days on Alindra were quiet, too quiet. The team discovered beings living among the glowing structures. Tall, elegant aliens with smooth silver-blue skin and bright eyes. They moved with slow grace and seemed kind, but they never spoke. They used their hands and the glowing lights on their bodies to communicate. When they wanted to show joy, their light shimmered gold. When they were sad, it turned deep blue. Ethan tried to speak to them, but they only smiled. They made shapes with light, like words in color, but no sound came from their mouths. Later, the ship's records explained what happened. The Alindrians had lost their voices long ago. A powerful radiation storm had passed through their world centuries ago and damaged something deep inside their bodies, the organ that created sound. They had survived by developing light-based language, but their songs, their spoken words, were gone forever. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about it. To him, silence was a heavy thing. He loved voices, laughter, stories, music. To imagine an entire species unable to speak felt heartbreaking. One evening, as the sun of Alindra set behind the crystal towers, Ethan sat near a glowing lake. The light danced on the water, and that's when he saw her. A young Alindrian stood near the edge, tracing symbols in the air with her glowing hands. Her lights flickered in soft purple tones, shy and uncertain. She looked different from the others. Smaller, gentler. Her eyes met Ethan's, and for a moment, neither moved. Ethan smiled and waved. She tilted her head curiously and made a shape in the air with her lights, a question. Ethan took out his tablet and showed her human writing. She tried to mimic it with her glowing fingers, laughing silently when her symbols looked wrong. Though they couldn't speak, they understood each other in small ways. He learned her name, Ariel. She liked drawing light patterns on the water and watching how they rippled. Ethan started spending more time near the lake, studying the way her lights changed when she felt happy or sad. He realized that her emotions were stronger than most Alindrians, as if she wanted more than their silent world could give. Days passed. One night, while studying the Alindrian anatomy records, Ethan made a discovery. He noticed that their voice cells were still present inside their throats, just inactive. Damaged, but not destroyed. The cells still carried a faint resonance pattern, a kind of vibration that reminded him of human vocal energy. The thought came to him suddenly. What if human voice frequencies could reawaken their lost sound? He shared his theory with the crew, but they were doubtful. "It's too risky," said Dr. Harlow, the ship's biologist. "To test your idea, a human would have to give up their own vocal resonance permanently. You'd lose your voice forever." Ethan looked down, silent. He understood the risk. His voice was part of him. He used it for his work, his music, his laughter. But when he thought of Ariel, tracing light symbols on the water, wanting to say something she never could, something inside him ached. He spent the next few days building a resonance converter using Alindrian crystals and human tech. He worked quietly, not telling anyone what he planned. Every time he saw Ariel, he wanted more to hear her voice, not through light, but sound. A real word. A real feeling. One night, the converter was ready. It stood in a small lab under the crystal dome. The air glowed faint blue. Ethan set the machine to extract his own voice frequency and transfer it into Ariel's dormant cells. He didn't tell her what he was about to do. He only left a message on his tablet for her. I want you to speak. The universe should hear you. When Ariel entered the lab, Ethan smiled at her one last time. He touched his throat, then pointed at her. She understood something was happening, but didn't know what. The converter started to hum. The crystals around them brightened. Ethan felt warmth in his throat, then pain, deep, burning pain. His voice vibrated through the machine, a soft echo of all the words he had ever spoken. He tried to whisper one last word, but nothing came. The sound faded from him completely. When it was over, Ethan's mouth opened, but no sound followed. Silence filled the room. His voice was gone. Ariel looked at him in confusion. Then, she felt a strange warmth inside her chest. A vibration rose through her throat, a feeling she had never known. She gasped, and a soft sound escaped her lips. Her eyes widened. The sound grew stronger, clearer down, and then, for the first time in her life, she spoke. Her voice was gentle, filled with wonder. She looked at Ethan, tears glowing in her eyes, and said her first human word, the one she had seen him write many times before. Thank you. Ethan couldn't answer, but his smile said everything. The glowing city outside began to change color as other Elendrians felt the vibration. For the first time in centuries, sound returned to their world, carried by the voice of one girl and the silence of one man. The legend of the silent human began that night, though Ethan never wanted fame. Only to hear another's heart find its sound again. And somewhere deep in the crystal city, Ariel's voice echoed softly into the night, as if the stars themselves were listening. The soft sound of her voice spread through the crystal corridors like a wave of light. The walls of the city glowed brighter, reacting to the vibration of her tone. The Elendrians who were nearby stopped in shock. They had never heard a voice before, not for many generations. The sound was small, trembling, but beautiful. Ariel held her hands to her mouth. Her body shook as she realized what had happened. She could speak. After centuries of silence, one of her kind had finally made a sound. She turned toward Ethan, who stood weak and pale beside the resonance converter. He could no longer speak, but his eyes smiled with quiet peace. Ethan, she whispered, testing his name for the first time. It felt strange and warm on her tongue. Thank you. He nodded, unable to answer, but his gaze told her that it was enough. He reached out and gently touched her shoulder. His lips moved slowly, shaping silent words. Ariel didn't understand them at first, but she could feel their meaning through his eyes. You did it. She wanted to say more, to tell him how much it meant, how much she could feel his kindness inside her new voice. But before she could, the other Elendrians arrived. They gathered around her in wonder, their light patterns flashing in every color of the spectrum. When she spoke again, saying her name out loud, many of them gasped silently. Some reached for her hands, some touched her face, their lights trembling with awe. It was real. The sound was real. Dr. Harlow and the rest of the human team rushed in soon after. When they saw Ethan standing speechless beside the converter, realization hit them. He did it, Harlow whispered. He really gave up his voice. They tried to ask Ethan questions, but he could only gesture. He pointed to Ariel and then to the machine, explaining through signs what had happened. The crew looked at him with mixed emotions, admiration and sadness. He had done something no one else dared to do. The next day, the humans and Elendrians gathered in the great hall made of crystal glass. Ariel stood before them, nervous but determined. She wanted to use her voice to honor Ethan's gift. She began to speak slowly, each word sounding like music echoing through the walls. For many years, she said, our world was silent. We spoke only through light, and even our dreams were quiet. But now, I carry a piece of a human's voice, his gift, his courage, his kindness. I will never forget. Her voice trembled with emotion, and the Elendrian's lights pulsed in deep blue and gold. Many bowed their heads in respect to Ethan. Even without a voice, he had spoken louder than anyone else ever could. The human crew recorded everything, sending the message to their home world. When Earth received the transmission, people everywhere were amazed. News spread across human colonies and starships. A human gave his voice to help an alien speak. It became a story of hope, a story that showed humanity was not just about power, but compassion. Weeks passed. Ethan slowly adjusted to his silence. The other crew members built a communication device that allowed him to project text from a small wristpad. He used it to talk, though it was not the same. He visited him every day. She practiced her voice by reading words he typed on the screen. Sometimes she would sing softly, though she didn't know what music was before him. The sound of her singing filled the crystal halls, and Ethan would close his eyes, listening with a smile. One evening, as they sat by the glowing lake, Ariel noticed something unusual. When she spoke certain words, her voice carried Ethan's tone, his calm, warm rhythm. It was faint, but she could hear it. It was as if his emotions were living inside her sound. "Ethan," she said softly, "I can hear you." He raised an eyebrow, confused. She continued, "When I speak, sometimes your feelings come through. Your happiness, your sadness, even your laughter. It's like your voice is still alive. Inside me." Ethan looked surprised but also moved. He typed slowly on his wristpad. Maybe the resonance bond connected more than sound. Maybe it connected our hearts too. Ariel smiled, tears glowing in her eyes. "Then you are not silent at all," she said. "You still speak, through me." That night, Ariel and Ethan worked together to understand the resonance bond. The Elendrian's crystals reacted differently when she spoke compared to others. Her voice could activate hidden energy fields, something no other being could do. They realized that Ethan's voice frequencies had merged with her energy patterns, creating a new kind of harmony, a shared voice between human and Ian. Dr. Harlow and the scientists studied this effect carefully. If they could copy it safely, they might be able to help every Elendrian speak again, without needing more human sacrifices. Ethan's gift could become a bridge between the two species. Days turned into weeks, and progress continued. Ariel became a symbol of hope for her people. Every time she spoke in public, Elendrians gathered to listen, tears glowing in their eyes. Her words were simple but powerful, messages about unity, courage, and gratitude. And even though Ethan could not speak, he stood beside her every time, watching proudly. She often turned toward him while talking, as if inviting him to share the moment through her. In her heart, she believed she was not just speaking for herself, she was speaking for both of them. But peace never lasts forever. One day, strange vibrations began shaking the city. The skies darkened, and the air filled with static energy. Scientists detected a powerful radiation storm approaching, the same kind of storm that had stolen the Elendrians. Voices generations ago. Panic spread quickly. The Elendrians feared that their sound would vanish again before it could reach everyone. Their lights flashed in panic colors, filling the streets with confusion. Ariel looked to Ethan. He placed his hand on her shoulder, steadying her. His eyes were calm. He had faced danger before. He typed a short message on his wristpad. "We won't let the storm take your voice again." Ariel nodded. Then, we must act fast, she said. The storm grew stronger by the hour. Ethan and Ariel led a team of humans and Elendrians to build shields using the resonance crystals. They worked through the night, combining science and sound. Ariel used her voice to activate the crystals. Her tone carried the same energy as Ethan's frequency, creating a protective field. When the storm finally reached the planet, the shields began to crack under pressure. Lightning of pure energy struck the towers. The light around them flickered. Ethan held the controls while Ariel stood at the center, her voice echoing through the system. "Hold strong," she shouted, her tone rising higher, glowing through the darkness. Ethan watched silently, proud and terrified at the same time. If they failed, their shared voice, would be lost forever. But Ariel did not give up. She focused all her strength, channeling the harmony she shared with Ethan. The crystals responded, pulsing brighter, their glow pushing back the storm's energy. And for a moment, the world fell still, balanced between silence and sound. The shield held. The storm began to fade. When the sky cleared, the Elendrians looked up in awe. They had survived again, not through fear, but through the bond between a silent human and a girl who had learned to speak. Ariel fell to her knees, exhausted but smiling. She turned to Ethan and whispered softly, "We did it. Both of us." Ethan couldn't reply, but his eyes said everything. Words of pride, relief, and gratitude. And in that shining moment, Ariel knew something true. His voice was never really gone. It lived within her, in every word, every sound, every song that now echoed across Elendra. The storm had passed, leaving Elendra bathed in soft golden light. The crystal towers shimmered as if reflecting every emotion in the hearts of its people. For the first time in centuries, the Elendrians could speak freely, at least some of them. And at the center of it all was Ariel, a voice carrying the warmth and courage of a human who had given everything. Ethan stood beside her, silent but full of pride. Though he could no longer speak, he no longer felt empty. Ariel's voice had become a living echo of his own, a connection that no loss could sever. The Elendrians gathered in the great plaza, eager to hear Ariel's words. Children ran to her, their tiny lights flickering in excitement. Elders bent forward respectfully, listening with wonder. Humans and Elendrians stood side by side, their hearts united by a shared miracle. Ariel took a deep breath and began to speak. "We survived because someone believed in us, because someone cared enough to give what he could never take back, his voice. But his courage is more than sound. It is hope, love, and trust. And that is something no storm can ever take." Her voice quivered, but the Elendrians' lights glowed brighter, reflecting the truth in her words. The humans listened silently, touched beyond measure. Ethan watched her, feeling the full weight of their shared journey. Even without his voice, he could feel every word deep inside. In the weeks that followed, Ariel helped teach other Elendrians to speak. Not every voice sounded the same. Many were faint, some uneven, but every word was precious. She carried Ethan's tone in her heart, helping others find courage to try. The Elendrians discovered something extraordinary. When Ariel spoke near others, her resonance awakened their own dormant voice cells. Slowly, entire communities began to speak again, creating songs of joy and laughter that had been lost for centuries. One evening, as the twin sons of Elendra sat behind the crystal towers, Ariel and Ethan sat by the glowing lake. Ariel's hands traced patterns in the air, her lights shimmering gold and violet. "Ethan," she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion, "I can hear you inside me every time I speak. Your courage, your kindness, it lives in my words." Ethan smiled and typed on his wrist pad. "Then our voices are never really separate. They are together, always." Ariel nodded, tears glistening. She whispered his name again, and for a moment, the air itself seemed to hum with their shared resonance. Some of the Elendrians nearby paused, feeling the warmth of their bond without understanding why life on Elendra changed in more ways than anyone had imagined. Humans and Elendrians began working together to rebuild cities damaged by the old storm. The resonance crystals, powered by Ariel's voice, became a source of energy and communication. High above the cities, towers rang with soft, musical tones, a network of sound that united the planet. Ethan found new purpose. Though he could not speak, he taught humans and Elendrians together, guiding them with gestures, written words, and his presence. He was no longer silent in spirit. His ideas, his laughter, and his patience were felt everywhere. Riell. He often led the classes, her voice a living bridge between two worlds. Children laughed as they tried to imitate her words. Adults practiced simple phrases, discovering the joy of expressing themselves for the first time. The Elendrians' culture, once silent and static, began to bloom with stories, songs, and conversation. One day, a young Elendrian boy approached Ariel. His lights flickered nervously, and he whispered a sound she had never heard before. Ariel's eyes widened. The boy had spoken clearly in Ethan's tone. Ethan typed quickly. "See? Your gift is spreading. It will live in others too." Ariel smiled. "It will never die," she said softly. But the story of their bond did not remain only on Elendra. Messages sent to human colonies told the tale of a silent human who had given his voice so an alien could speak. Across the stars, humans and aliens alike were inspired by his courage. Children drew pictures of Ethan and Ariel. Poets wrote songs about them. Scientists studied their work, hoping to understand how empathy and sacrifice could create such powerful resonance. For Ariel, the most important lesson was personal. She had learned that sound was more than words. It was connection. And she knew that without Ethan, she would never have discovered her voice. She often whispered his name in her heart, letting the resonance guide her speech. Her laughter, her music. One quiet evening, as the crystal city glimmered under Elendra's moons, a new discovery occurred. Ariel spoke to the lake softly, testing a low, trembling note. The water rippled, reflecting a faint vibration, a faint echo of Ethan's own voice. For a moment, it seemed as though he was speaking to her, not through words, but through resonance itself. Her eyes filled with tears. "You're still here," she whispered. "You never left." Ethan watched silently, smiling. He typed on his pad, "And you were never alone." Not ever. The connection they shared was no longer just a story. It was life itself, a living harmony between human and Elendrian, proof that sacrifice and empathy could change worlds. Years passed. Elendra became a planet of voices, laughter, and song. Humans and Elendrians worked together in harmony. Children grew up speaking freely, learning both the light language and sound, singing songs that combined human tones with Elendrian resonance. Ariel became a teacher, a leader, and a symbol of hope. She often stood on the highest crystal tower, speaking to crowds of thousands. Every word she spoke carried Ethan's tone, reminding everyone of the silent man who had given everything. Ethan continued to guide quietly. Though he never regained his own voice, he never felt silent again. His presence, his guidance, and his bond with Ariel were enough to speak louder than words. One day, as Elendra's sun set in golden light, Ariel spoke into the city square. Humanity's voice is never lost. It lives in courage, in love, in the bonds we share. One voice can change everything, and one act of kindness can echo across a universe. And from somewhere deep inside, the resonance of Ethan's voice, faint, gentle, eternal, hummed in harmony with hers. The Elendrians listened, smiling. Children laughed and repeated the words. And in that moment, humans and aliens alike understood a simple truth. Voices may be given, lost, or shared. But the heart of humanity, its courage, kindness, and empathy can never be silenced. Ariel whispered one last word into the glowing evening air, her tone trembling with warmth. "Thank you." Ethan closed his eyes, smiling. In that simple word, their worlds, their hearts, and their voices were forever united. The universe remembered the silent human who had given the gift of sound, and the girl who had spoken it back, carrying hope across the stars.